Is all too familiar, I'm sure, for you, this kind of environment, this rehearsal space, this safe space where you can come in and work out what works and what doesn't and not be judged. But at some point you have to leave this space, Demi, and you have to go out there and you have to sing these songs that people want to hear, for people who are dying to see you again. And this weekend is a big moment. It's the first moment really where the world gets to see you again for some time at the Grammys this weekend. And I feel like it's just going to start again. And I guess the first question is, in the safe space, how do you feel a few days out from leaving this place?
I feel really excited and I'm ready. I feel like I've been waiting for this moment for so long, and it's going to be hard not to like go on stage and just like word vomit everything. You know, like I just want to go up there and tell my story. And I have 3 minutes to do so. So I'm just going to do the best that I can. And it's only telling a fraction of my story, but it's still a little bit, and it's enough to kind of show the world where I've been.
What's the name of the song you're going to be performing?
The song that I'm going to be performing is called Anyone.
Now, this is a really powerful song. I mean, this, to me, the timeline is so important in telling the story of this song. I feel if the song was written after you got back on your feet, it would mean something very different than if it was written before you got back on your feet. Which one was it?
So this song was written and recorded actually very shortly before everything happened. So I recorded the vocals for it 4 days before.
July 20th.
Yes. Yeah. So it was, the lyrics took on a totally different meaning. You know, at the time when I was recording it, I almost listen back and hear these lyrics as a cry for help. And you kind of listen back to it and you kind of think, how did nobody listen to this song and think, let's help this girl, you know what I'm saying? And I even think that I was recording it in a state of mind where I felt like I was okay, but clearly I wasn't. And I even listened back to it and I'm like, gosh, I wish I could go back in time and help that version of myself.
So you were still in denial, you feel, when you were singing that song?
Definitely. I feel like I was in denial, but then a part of me definitely knew what I was singing for.
Your spirit was singing something that your mind couldn't really comprehend at the time.
Right. It's kind of like life imitates art.
Yeah, for
sure.
You
know, I was singing this song and I didn't even realize that the lyrics were so heavy and emotional until after the fact. And that's what kind of brings us to this moment is, you know, I remember being in the hospital and listening to this song, and it was about a week after I had been in the hospital, and I was finally like awake, and I just remember hearing back the songs I had just recorded and thinking, if there's ever a moment where I get to come back from this, I want to sing this song.
Wow, to be in that state of mind already, to be present, still so close to something that had been so disorientating and terrifying for you and for those around you, but to be present of mind to say, I know how powerful this moment is even now.
You know, a part of me was like looking towards the future because that's what I do. When I'm struggling or when I'm going through a rough time, I look towards the future for hope and to change my perspective on things. And especially when I go through something difficult, I always stop and I think, okay, why is God putting me through this? And sometimes it doesn't make sense in that moment. But kind of like this song, I recorded it, went through everything, and then it made sense later of like, okay, that's why these lyrics were so emotional when I was singing it, is because they were actually so far deep in my soul of like asking for help that you can really feel that when you listen back to it.
I think one of the saddest parts of the song for me is when you talk about the opening lyric, which is, I tried to talk to my piano, I tried to talk to my guitar. You know, I tried to talk to my imagination? What's really sad about that is that music has been this great source of therapy, of understanding for artists to come to terms with something they can't communicate normally or they can't even understand about themselves. And in that moment, whether it was your subconscious talking or not, it was like music couldn't even help you at that point.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely feel that. I feel like you can use things to cope in life, and music has been a huge coping mechanism for me. It's been very therapeutic for me, but there's only so much that music can do before you have to take responsibility and you have to take the initiative to get the help that you need.
With the benefit of perspective now, looking back on the moments leading up to July 24th, can you recognize with more clarity the steps that were taken, even when you were sort of clouded in judgment, that got you to that place where it got as serious as it did, you know?
No. You know, obviously when I look back at I can put puzzle pieces together, but it wasn't conscious. It wasn't in that moment that I could really go back and say, okay, I was aware that it was going to lead to this. Never once did I ever think that I was going to end up where I did.
Are you ready to talk about what happened and how it happened and what happened on the night?
Yeah, I'm in the process of becoming more and more ready as time goes by. You know, I think it's taken me a long time to be able to even get this far, which is performing a song that's so vulnerable to me on a stage in front of all of my peers and coworkers and even people that I look up to. You know, that's, you know, kind of nerve-wracking to think about. But at the same time, I'm grateful that I have this opportunity to like sit here and talk to you and tell a little bit of my story. I think as time goes on, I'm going to tell more and more about it. With the next song that I have coming out, I think I tell more of the story. With this one, it just kind of tells you a little bit about where I was right before and right afterwards.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I'm going to give you the space to come to the terms with that yourself and not push any further than that. But focusing on this particular song and what it means to you, and vocally what I love about it is the fact that it's still so raw with emotion, and it's not like you went back in and tried to recapture that and kept that original vocal. Were you tempted at all to go back in and try to attack it again?
The perfectionist in me is always going to want to re-record
because I've watched your documentary and I've watched the way you handle your vocals. And what thing I loved about Simply Complicated is in the beginning when you're just like, the engineers are like, we got it. And you're like, no, we didn't. and then I hear a song like Anyone, and even in the opening ad-lib, I can hear you searching for something comfortable in the vocal take, that you're not there yet, but it's incredibly compelling. It draws you in immediately. And I wondered how the perfectionist in you sort of sits with that.
Well, I remember I was in Montana when I recorded that song. I did like a vocal cutting camp for my album that I was working on at the time. Little did I know my life would take the path that it did, but at that time I was just working on an album and I wanted to record vocals. So I went away and I recorded this song, and I didn't spend a lot of time perfecting it just because it isn't one of those songs that I feel like if you were to hear anything like doubles or if it's overproduced or anything like that, it would take away from the emotion of the song. So I wanted to keep it very raw. And we did. And then as time went on and we realized how magical that capturing that vocal of that song shortly before everything happened, you kind of can't recreate that. And so there's no point in me going back in the studio and trying to fix things or trying to get a better take of this line or that. You know, it's like I would rather it breathe and live the way that it is.
That's a huge step for an artist like yourself who's known for actually cutting vocals within an inch of their life in terms of the ability to reach the note, hit the note others can't reach. It must have been really kind of in a weird way. It must have been very liberating for you to not necessarily feel that urge to go back in and nail it.
It was liberating. It was liberating to be like, okay, I'm done with this song, you know? Yeah. But it is hard because I even got in trouble when I was in kindergarten. My mom got called to the principal's office because my teacher told my mom, Demi has this problem where if she doesn't get it right on the first try, she throws her hands up and throws a temper tantrum, and then she won't do it. And that's how much of a perfectionist I am.
Can I ask you what school choir was like for you? Because let me put it this way. Every kid at school thinks they can sing. And school choir, any parent who's been to choir night knows that with the greatest of respect, that's not the case. So when you're in the choir next to your peers and you're hearing your friends sing out of tune, was it just absolutely painful for you?
I was always a solo artist.
You were never in the school choir.
No, I was in the school choir. I was actually choir president. But I didn't give a what they were singing. Right. I was just like, you know what, give me my solo and I'll kill it. You know what I mean? Like,
you know, you raise an interesting point there to bring it back to today. You know, someone who's been so focused on what you can offer and what you can bring out of yourself, and it's clear you have a very strong ambition, what you wanted to achieve throughout your life. But ultimately, you found yourself after July having to rely on a lot of people that you knew and probably people you didn't.
Yeah.
To help you come through the other side. And I wonder how that affects you personally as someone who's been so focused and so independent, but realizing at the end of the day, you need others in order to reach the next level.
Well, I would say there were more people that I didn't know helping me out than people I knew, because had I had all of those people in my life already, I probably wouldn't have ended up where I did.
Yeah.
You know, so the help that I got was from people that I had met at new treatment centers or new doctors, new people like that have been really helpful and beneficial to the journey and the life that I'm living today.
Can I ask you, have you successfully cut off environments and people around you that you recognize now were not a good influence in your life?
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, I think that it's still a process. I think that as you meet people and as people come into your life, you still have to make a decision every time of like, is this somebody that I want around? You know, and if it's somebody that is a good influence on you and is supportive of the life that you want to live, then keep them. But if they're not, if it's not conducive to your journey that you want to be on, there's no need for them to be in your life.
Do you think you've had an error in judgment in that particular area in the past?
I think I still have that error in judgment. I think that it's just a part of growing up. You know, as people come into your life, as you meet people, you learn for your entire life red flags, things to look for. Unless you're like 100 years old with a bunch of life experience, you're never going to know right away who's good for you and who's not. You know, sometimes you get fooled. Sometimes you get into relationships that you think are healthy, and then you realize, wow, that actually wasn't healthy at all. And it's not that you're not cautious of it, you're not aware. It's just you don't realize it till later, until they do something or you do something, and it's like, oh, this isn't working out. You know, I kind of find that continues to happen. And it's just a learning experience at each time.
You know, there's a part of the artist's psyche I've learned throughout my life that walks this really fine line. Is kind of, at times, I think it's quite a precarious balance, fed by this sort of chemistry of insecurity and ambition, this desire to kind of express themselves, but equally this fear of doing it, but this need to do it. And, you know, an audience validates that, and you're an incredible performer, and you've probably in many respects used that as a coping mechanism in the past as well. But I wonder, now that you're stepping back out into the public eye in such a huge and high-profile way, whether or not you acknowledge that can also cause internal problems, and whether it's changed your perspective towards performing and what performance means to you.
I think that performance is really important for me because it gives me a platform to share my experiences. You know, the songs that I'm singing, the lyrics that I've written for my album and everything, it gives me a stage, and it gives me, like I said, a platform to share that with people that need to relate and need that to look for as hope and inspiration too. But I think it's important to remember that your self-worth doesn't come from the reaction of an audience.
And yet you're about to go on stage in front of millions and millions of people at the Grammys, and you know that reaction, that bump of adrenaline you get from, wow, she's incredible, or the bump of adrenaline you get from, wow, she's trash.
Right.
It goes both ways, and it's the same bump. And, you know, are you feeling strong in the face of that, or is there ways you can control your exposure to that? Because that's something I think artists are still learning now. I don't think anyone's got an answer to how to deal with that.
Right. Well, for me, something that I've done already is like take off the tags on Instagram. So like, I can't see what people tag me in. I'm pretty sure I've taken off the comments on everything too.
Self-preservation.
Self-preservation, yeah. And then also it's just like being aware of like, okay, something that I've dealt with in the past is like having these like really incredible experiences like the Grammys or like tour or concerts or things like that. And I have to be aware of like, okay, I'm gonna crash because my adrenaline's gonna go all weekend, and then I'm gonna have this performance, whether it goes great or not, my adrenaline is gonna come crashing down because come
Demi,
Monday morning.
You're about to do Grammys and Super Bowl within the space of 2 or 3 weeks.
And so it's definitely something that like I've talked to my team about, like, hey, we should be cautious. Like I might crash on Monday. Let's take precautions to maybe I do more meditating on Monday or whatever it is. Maybe I have more therapy or support. And then obviously the Super Bowl will happen too, and that'll be really exciting. But it's important to like plan ahead so that you're not, come Monday after the Grammys, I'm not sitting there like twiddling my thumbs like, okay, what am I doing with my life
Where
now?
do I get this adrenaline from? Yeah,
where do I get this from? How can I beat that high? Just like be prepared.
I want to stretch out into this conversation at a later date and talk about that, because I find it really fascinating, and I'm very, very dialed into empathy for artists right now, and the fact that we expect so much of artists. It's such a, the trade is so beautiful. You pour yourself out, we take it, we absorb it, we love it, but it really takes it out of the artistic mentality, the idea of what you need to do to get this music out of you. And you've been making new music, and I don't want to go too far down that road, but needless to say, fans will want to get something out of this. Where are you at with new music, aside from Anyone that we're about to hear and is going to blow people away? What's the future?
The future, I mean, I've got music coming out of my own that I'm really excited about. Like I said, I mentioned the song that I have coming out after this. And
it's just so hard to keep dialing that, teeing that up, and I keep on asking you the title, but I'm assuming you'd tell me if you were going to tell me.
I would tell you,
I know.
But I feel like it might
That's
ruin.
Cool. We're on Anyone right now.
Yes, we'll focus on Anyone. I'm really excited for the music that I'm releasing. I also have some stuff coming out with other people that's really exciting.
Okay.
So it's going to be a big year, and I feel the momentum, I feel the excitement, and I'm ready for it.
How are you staying prepared? You talked about meditation before. Are you getting the benefits of that?
So I actually don't meditate that often, but like when I think ahead of something, then I can be like, okay, let's plan a meditation for this day.
I get it. I'm a part-time meditator.
I'm a part-time meditator,
I wish I could actually master it, but my brain goes too many different directions.
So I'm ADHD. And
I'm OCD.
Mine's just like, I'll be meditating and then I'm like, oh, I need to text so-and-so, or I wonder what happened on the latest episode of The Bachelor. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, I need to be focusing on my well-being.
I'm excited to continue the conversation when the time is right. I think it's amazing the journey that you've been on. I spoke to one of your contemporaries and someone who can relate to this, who you came up with at the same time, Selena, about this. And I was saying the kind of experiences that she has gone through and subsequently you've gone through are so unique. To have lived your life in the public eye, to have chased something down as a youth that was so enticing and exciting, and then recognize that along the way you had to experience all this stuff and experience it in the public eye and experience it in the public eye during the time of the social media revolution where all eyes were on you.
Well, that's the thing is like, I've had people be like, I'll be at the beach and someone's taking a picture of me in my bathing suit without asking. And it's kind of like, people are like, well, you asked for this life. And it's like, okay, first of all, I was like 7 or 8 when I decided I wanted to do Barney and Friends, So like no 7 or 8-year-old can fully comprehend what life is going to come with being on television. No child can comprehend that. No adult can comprehend that.
No.
And then you add social media, which came about when I was about 15.
Yeah, so just at a time when you're at your most self-conscious and you're most awkward, here's a way for people to look at you all the time.
And millions of people comment about your body, about the way you look, your skin, your talent, who you're dating, who you're friends with, who you're feuding with. And you're just like, can I be a teenager? Like, nope. And so that was kind of, I feel like I've definitely like had a weird life. And yes, it was my choice, but I also wasn't expecting for it to be what it is today. And I think even the idea of celebrity is completely different than the idea of celebrity 20, 30 years ago. Celebrities could be themselves and not, paparazzi wasn't huge. Not since like the Britney Spears days where like they started hounding her. It wasn't a thing really until those days.
Yeah, there were definitely turning points. That was one of them. I think once people hear this song and they recognize that you're at a point when where you're willing to share, you're in a perfect position to start expressing yourself at the dawn of a new decade and focus on the positives and focus on this joy that this chance you've been given. Can we talk about how you feel about the future and what you want your future to be this decade and beyond?
When I think of my future for the decade, I think at some point in this decade, I want to start a family.
Yeah.
That would be dope. All of this is great, and it's beautiful, and I'm lucky, and I'm blessed, and I'm grateful. But I've learned that clearly, if all of this made you happy, I wouldn't have ended up where I did. My success does not measure my happiness. Exactly. And so when I think about what makes me happy today, I think about my family. I think about my friends. I think about my team. I think about people connections, soul
meaningful
connections. Meaningful relationships, exactly.
Nothing more meaningful than starting your own family and a chance to build.
exactly. And I don't know what that looks like. I don't even know if I see it with a man or a woman. But like, I just know that at some point I would love to do that this decade. And if it doesn't happen this decade, maybe the next, I don't know, we'll see. But I would love to start doing more things that make me happy and worry less about success.
Yeah, I was going to say, which will in turn renew this kind of joy you have in the process, because it sounds to me what you're trying to get away from to a degree is result-driven metrics and into process.
Yeah. You know, for my whole career, I always was like, oh, I want a Grammy so bad.
Yeah.
Or I want this, or I want that, and a number one here, number one there, you know, and all of that stuff is great. And if you can accomplish that, that's awesome. But I just know personally, it doesn't fill that hole inside of me.
Yeah.
That only love and appreciation and gratitude can fill.
Where are you right now at your happiest? Like, what's making you laugh? What's making you really happy right now?
I love spending time with my family, whether it's just time with just me and my mom, or if it's with my sisters when they come over, just being with my family. And that was what was so great about the holiday season, is like you get to go over there to the house and like spend time with your family and lounge around in onesies and just be lazy and eat holiday food. And it's just like, that was so awesome and so great to me. You know, another thing that like I started doing was I started going to church. I was not really a big church person. Like even a month ago.
Which is incredible, because there's a very, very powerful lyric on the song Anyone, which really questions the power of faith and why am I praying? And in one particular moment, you know, there's a carefully worded emphasis in that, which was, again, a real kind of desperate moment of like, I'm rock bottom here.
And that lyric change actually happened as I was performing it. It was just like, I want to try something. And so then when I was recording it, I added it and was like, hey, you know what? That actually makes it so much more impactful.
So that's the only time that you ever used that word in any performance of that song?
I've never said that word.
Off.
Yeah, there you go.
I mean, you've only ever sung that word once in that song. You captured it, you caught it, you were like, I got what I needed out of that moment. That's as desperate as I felt about the concept of faith and prayer and what religion means. And now to find yourself, as of a month ago, looking for that spirit within the community, which is what church is. What are you getting from that? How are you getting healing from that experience?
You know what's really funny is I shied away from church for many years. I didn't feel welcome. I was also like questioning my sexuality, and I just found a place out here in LA that like accepts me for who I am, no matter who I love, and there's no judgment. And that's what I needed, was a place of no judgment. And I hadn't found that until about a month ago, actually. My manager, Scooter, was like, hey, I was having a really rough night. And he was like, hey, do you want to go to Bible study? I was like, wait, aren't you Jewish? But he was like...
He's an open-minded Jewish human being.
He was like, you know what? Let's go. If it's going to help you, let's go. And so he took me there, and I just like heard God clearer than I had heard him in a long time. And I was just like, oh, you know what? This year is about, I need to focus on myself and my relationship with myself and my relationship with God. And I try to seek God through other experiences, whether that's through other relationships or substances, you know? And it's like, I had to realize the God that I'm seeking, the God that I love, and the God that I want to be my God is available 24/7, always at an arm's length, and constantly with me. And feeling that kind of, that shift, I don't know, I just feel safer and I feel renewed.
As we're working this out in real time, I think honesty and transparency within a controlled framework, your framework, seems to be an antidote.
Yeah.
It's like you sort of let go of all the things you can't control and focus on the things you can.
Yeah.
And tell your truth.
Yeah.
And you're going to do that with anyone, the song.
Definitely.
Wow. It's a hell of a performance. I can't think of too many people on this planet that can sing that song. Maybe no one can sing that song.
Oh, thank you.
It's going to be crazy. And as first steps go, it's going to be a very powerful one. So thanks for your time. Looking forward to the next time.
Thank you.